Let's talk about looking for a candidate's skills and potential. Now, first, let's talk about looking at someone's background and considering the job description. The job descriptions today can be very detailed, and they don't always accurately reflect what the candidate needs to do. And what's worse is that if you list 12 points and a candidate looks at that and they only meet 11, but they don't meet one of them, an autistic person in particular is going to be like, oh, I'm not qualified for this. When in reality, maybe 2 or 3 of those you considered like optional or more of a wish list or something that you could train. So, try not to get overly detailed on the job description. Try to reduce it to what the candidate actually needs to be able to do first day on the job. And another thing to look at is a degree really needed for the role, or can someone with a non-traditional background perform the work? Keep in mind that particularly autistic individuals are not good talkers, and you shouldn't judge our intelligence based on our ability to speak. For 40% of people on the autism spectrum are nonverbal or minimally verbal, and another percentage, a pretty decent percentage, kind of struggle like putting together a simple sentence. I know people that it might take them 20, 30 seconds to string together 6 or 8 words to try and say what they mean. And a lot of people who talk to that individual might think, oh, this person's not very smart, this person's not very bright. And that individual is one of the most talented, hardworking, brilliant people I've known in the physics department, who can run a dozen projects in parallel and on a whim writes up their own programs that end up getting adapted by NASA and stuff. So extremely talented, a tremendous amount of cognitive potential. And yet if you try to judge their intelligence just based on how they can speak, you're going to go way off the mark. Evaluate the assessments that you normally use, personality assessments and stuff. I know in a lot of companies and stuff, this is really popular, but you have to recognize that those assessments were designed for the neuromajority, for most people and how their brains work. If you take someone who's neurodivergent and you give them one of those tests, your results are probably not going to be accurate, and you're probably going to get a lot of false hits off of that because it wasn't designed for them. It wasn't created for them. And I have firsthand experience with this. I've used some assessments on several autistic individuals and got a lot of red flags indicating that they might have been guessing or they might not have taken it very seriously. And I've sat down with those individuals and gone through all their answers. And from an autistic perspective, no, they took it very seriously and they answered it very seriously. And it's just some of the results, some of the flags that were designed for the neuromajority, how the typical brain, the average brain, they tripped up those flags. So I say treat personality assessments, particularly when it comes to neurodivergent individuals, as less useful than trying to judge someone's competence at a job based on their zodiac sign. It's about how accurate you should consider it to be. Avoid trying to just like simply do the traditional job interview where you just talk to somebody and you get them to like explain how awesome they are and how great they are. Particularly autistic individuals, we're not good talkers. We're not good at kind of selling ourselves. We're very honest and very direct. And if you ask us to give our opinion of something, we're going to be as brutally honest as possible. And we'll even err on the side of talking ourselves down because we don't want to, most of us do not want to lead somebody on or say something that might be considered like a falsehood or might later be uncovered as a falsehood. A lot of us take our honesty very, very, very seriously. And because we're not good talkers about ourselves, you're probably not going to get an accurate measurement. So with neurodivergent folks, it's really better instead to try to do some sort of tech interview. Give us a little project or a case study or a skill assessment. Allow us to demonstrate our skill set. And one final point on that, be careful with your instructions. If your instructions are vague, and most normal people love like these vague hand-wavy instructions where you're just expected to fill in the blank yourself. You can only fill in the blank if your brain works the same way as the person who wrote that vague question. So for us, more details, very specific point-by-point instructions, we're much more likely to be able to understand what you're asking for and be able to follow along with that. And finally, if you're unsure about any particular accommodation request that someone's asking for to be able to thrive in the workplace, within the US, you can always access the Job Accommodation Network. This is a free resource for employers and employees where you can describe the disability and get advice and options that would meet the accommodation request.